Hi everyone, this is Al McKay. Welcome to episode 148. I'm speaking with Kevin Baillie from Atomic Fiction. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Alan McKay Podcast. Alan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Alan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Alan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on alanmckay.com.
All right, welcome to a brand new episode. So this episode is with one of the founders of Atomic Fiction, which is one of my favorite studios, having worked there a little bit during the early days of Atomic and just watching how rapidly they've been able to grow with the leadership of both Kevin and Ryan. Atomic Fiction's located in both Oakland in Northern California, as well as in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada. And we get into a lot of really great stuff. So not only do we discuss Kevin's career leading up to Atomic Fiction and, of course, beyond there, as well as a lot of the movie work that they do, but we also get into talking about Conductor, which is their cloud-based rendering solution, or more they're a tool that manages, renders, and efficiently is able to distribute and control all of it. So there's a lot that we get into, and I think that when it comes to cloud rendering, Kevin's definitely a massive authority on this subject, being someone who was a very early adopter of cloud rendering, and in a lot of ways was able to really push it, I think, a lot more beyond what a lot of other people had been using it up until then. So using it heavily on visual effects, feature films, a lot of high profile films. We get into a lot of that. This is going to be a really cool episode. I want to get right into this. So a couple of things I'm just going to quickly mention. One is if you go to alanmckay.com/148, you'll be able to get access to the show notes there and any quotes or key insights or other things that we discuss, as well as links to anything we go over as well. In addition to that, I have a brand new website which is live now. If you go to alanmckay.com, this has been a long time coming, but this contains loads of really great resources, assets, and other things like that. So definitely have a look there, because this is something that I've been spending quite a long time putting together to make a be-all and end-all resource for everyone to do with your career as well as to do with visual effects. So that being said, I'm really excited to get into this episode. So let's dive in. Okay, just quickly, one of the biggest problems that we face as artists is figuring out how much we're worth. Typically, the situation is that we go into job interviews and we're asked how much we're going to charge. We either shoot ourselves in the foot by saying that we charge less than we're worth, so that way we get the gig, and indirectly end up leaving tens of thousands of dollars accumulatively over time on the table, rather than actually asking what we should be charging. At the same time, you don't want to alienate your employers by asking for too much and leaving yourself out in the cold. So what I've done is I put together a website, check it out, www.vfxrates.com, and this is a chance for you to be able to put in your experience, your discipline, the location you're working, all the good things that will give you a fairly accurate idea of what you and everyone else should be charging in your discipline. This is something that I'm going to continue to build and flesh out over time, but the key thing is actually that I don't want to just showcase how much you should be worth, but also show you and hand you the tools to grow beyond that and to learn to negotiate better, to learn to ask for the right amount of money in the right way. There's lots of additional tools and information I want to hand over to you. Everything's free. Check it out, vfxrates.com. Put in your information and you'll instantly get notified of how much money you should be charging per hour as a VFX artist. vfxrates.com. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Kevin Baillie. I'm a co-founder at Atomic Fiction, the visual effects studio, as well as CEO at Conductor Technologies, where we build a platform for cloud rendering in the visual effects and animation space.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I was just curious, like, did you always want to work in film when you were a kid, or was this something that you kind of fell into later? I mean, I know your story, but I'm kind of curious for everyone else.
Yeah. Well, we've worked together, so you know that I'm passionate about this stuff to the nth degree. And when I was a kid, we, my good buddy Ryan and I, we always used to go to movies where we grew up in Seattle, and there was sort of this theme of films that we would always go to. It would be, the ETs and the Back to the Futures and Jurassic Parks and stuff. And it was like we were really passionate about those, but it wasn't really until we saw Jurassic Park and saw some of the making of stuff on like the Movie Magic TV show, where we were sort of like, oh my gosh, like there are real people behind this stuff. Like, and we just got so inspired by seeing the stories of the people that were doing this, that we kind of picked it up as a hobby at our high school in Seattle. And it wasn't until actually we were filmed for a documentary that was funded by George Lucas about how public education and technology companies were working together. And George Lucas actually gave us a call and invited us down to Skywalker Ranch to tour it, that we were sort of like, oh my gosh, like this could actually be more than a hobby. This could be a job. Like I was convinced that I was going to be a lawyer up until that very moment. And then this switch flipped in my brain that I was like, man, this hobby of mine could actually lead to something. And, fast forward 23 years later, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
That's so cool. I'm just curious really quick, like, why did you want to be a lawyer? Like, what specifically about that gravitated you towards it?
Type A personality, and I love to be right. And also I was like, I loved debating. Like I loved, my mom always used to say that I loved arguing more than anything else, which in retrospect, I think I've had to fight a lot of that in my early years in sort of the visual effects business, because it is such a collaborative space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very glad that I didn't become a lawyer. And I probably have Steven Spielberg and Jurassic Park to thank for that.
I always loved it though, because I always post on like Facebook or wherever, what's the movie that actually got you started? And it's always either Star Wars or the next phase is going to be Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, and then kind of ripples down from there. And then occasionally you get someone say Harry Potter or something, and it's like, man, you're way too young.
That's so funny. What's crazy is there's this sort of generation of folk that work with atomic fiction that I was in an interview the other day where an artist that we hired cited Hellboy as one of their inspirations for getting into the industry, and that was one of the most fun projects that I've ever worked on. And I was, I forget how old I was when I was doing that. It was like 23, 24, but it was one of my first CG supervising gigs, right? And I was just like, oh my gosh, this movie that I actually worked on inspired somebody to get into the business. How freaking cool is that? Like, it made me feel old, but it also was really good.
No, it's awesome though. I mean, it's really great seeing that connection. Yeah, I mean, for you, I'm always interested in diving into kind of the history a little bit, but for you going to meet Lucas and check out like what they were doing at the ranch or whichever location you're at, like, I mean, again, for a lot of people that even now as a grown adult is still going to be a dream come true. Yeah. So what was it like for you guys? I mean, you were still relatively young, like what, 15, 16?
We were 16 years old at the time, and it was probably one of the most surreal experiences of my life, because it was, we showed up on a Sunday, and it turned out that they had actually meant for us to show up on a Monday. They just got the date wrong. So we showed up, and, there's nobody that works at Skywalker Ranch on a Sunday, but they, put us up in the caretaker's cottage, which is this beautiful cottage that they put, directors at when they're there to mix sound at Skywalker Sound. And, 10 minutes into being there, this green BMW 7 Series pulls up outside the window, and George Lucas steps out. So, of course, Ryan and I were like, oh my God, it's George Lucas. And we run out down the stair steps and just accost them like fanboys and explain, we introduced ourselves, and he's like, oh yeah, you guys are the guys from Seattle, right? And we're just like, oh my God, George Lucas knows who we are. And we spent the rest of the day like babysitting his youngest daughter and son, and watching movies that quote unquote Uncle Speely had made on Laserdisc. So it was just like this insanely surreal experience to start with. And then the next day we got a tour of the Star Wars Episode 1 art department, where we were 2 of the first 12 people in the world to have seen the concept art for the Star Wars prequels. After which we got an e-ticket tour of ILM from, Rob Coleman and Barry Armour, I think, and Dennis Murin. And some of these people that we'd seen on these movie
all the making ofs. Yeah, I remember like Rob Coleman being on everything, and again, like all those guys, like you nerd out about, just kind of watching it not as a functioning studio of people, but more kind of this whole other world. So
yeah, it's like artisans, right? And here we are, like being sat and see theater at the original sort of Industrial Light and Magic on Kerner Boulevard, getting sneak previews of the Star Wars Special Edition trailers, right? And it's just like 16-year-old kids, like we were just absolutely floored. So when we got back home after this experience, we knew that we had no choice but to do this for a career. Like it wasn't even an option anymore. And so we set out crafting a video that was loosely based on the pre-vis that we'd seen for the pod race in Star Wars Episode 1, but not so close to it as to get sued. That was really aimed at like getting us a job after high school. So every month after that, between when we started our senior year in high school and the couple weeks before we graduated, we would send them a letter and a videotape of our progress of this video, and just kept sending it to Rick McCallum, George's producer, and George. And about 2 weeks before we graduated from high school, I remember picking up a voicemail from Rick McCallum saying, stop sending us letters, quit sending us videos, you got the fucking job. So that's how that went down.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And like, I think it's so important, especially when you are young, to kind of get that fire under your butt. And, it is one of those things where you walk outdoors, whatever it is. Yours is obviously a pretty surreal story, but, whoever it is that kind of gives you that permission to say, like, okay, I'm fucking doing it. We're going to go and, I'm going to get into this place, or here's what I'm going to do and be an artist. And for you, I think that's so cool to have been able to go off after that point and have that persistence to continue to send your work in and just kind of chip away until you were at that level. Do you think do you experience that a lot now too? Like, do you have a lot of certain individuals who are just constantly sending their work, kind of like leveling up each time?
It doesn't happen as often as I wanted to, right? I think that sort of passion and determination in the face of impossible odds is something that's actually quite a rarity. And so when I see it, I grab onto it really tightly, right? Because those people are they're special, and obviously, I sort of relate to them really closely. And if I have any words of encouragement for anybody else out there that sort of has a passion for this and doesn't quite know what the route is, it's like all I can say is that there are avenues out there, and it being enough of a rarity that people send in great work and just pour their soul into it, and it shows on the screen. I mean, it is really rare. So if you're one of those people, you can do it and annoy people with it, and if it's great, it will stand out. I guarantee it. And my story can be your story or something similar, right?
I love it. That's so cool. And from there, what happened? Like you guys rocked up, and so it was both you and Ryan went over, and what happened at that point?
So we showed up our first day at Skywalker Ranch, not knowing if we were going to be getting coffee and making copies or doing art. And to be honest, we didn't care.
Yeah,
we were ready to do whatever. And they sat us down in front of. We did get some coffee and we did make some copies, but we also got sat down in front of these, Power Mac workstations with Electric Image and Form Z and Adobe After Effects installed, and started working on pre-vis for Episode 1. And on a twice or three times a week basis, we would go down to the editors' rooms and work with the editors, Martin Smith and Ben Burt and George Lucas, right? So it was like we were working with George Lucas directly every week. And it was an insane learning experience. Even at the time, we knew how amazing it was. And now in retrospect, I think it is 10 times as amazing as we even realized. But that was, just sort of a crash course in how to tell stories with visuals, and some really amazing, nice people, and made a lot of great friends there. One of which was Doug Chang, who was leading the art department, and ended up many, many years later starting a company with Robert Zemeckis called ImageMovers Digital, and joined forces with him there, that's whatever that was, 7 or 8 years later after that. So that was another important lesson for me is, these relationships, even early in the career that I built, they've come back again and again and again. And sometimes there are people that work for me again. Sometimes there are people that used to work for me and now I'm working for them. Right. So,
yeah. No, I love it. And I was going to pick your brain about that later on, actually, because I think relationships are so critical. And that's definitely one that you've not only got exposure to a lot of really amazing people over your career, but at the same time, you definitely leveraged that and had like a strong relationship with a lot of amazing directors and other creatives as well. Like, how important for people, let's say, starting out or really wanting to level up their career, like for you, how important do you think it is to take relationship building seriously and to make sure that those positive relationships that you keep?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything, right? It's at least for working in a company that values humans, right? Where like, to me, the people that I work with are a make or break whether I have a great day or not. And I'm not going to set myself up for being in a position where I'm not going to have a good day, right? And I want to set myself up to be in a position where the people that I'm working with are going to support me and are going to accept my support when I have something to offer, right? And so much of that is not just centered around skills, it's centered around relationships. And, there are certain environments out there right now that are, some of them are kind of heavily driven by tax incentives, where there's sort of a flurry of hiring, where it's like you look at, a place like Vancouver, that there's just not enough talented artists there, so the demand is insanely high. What that sort of breeds is like people are like, oh, I can walk out the door right now and get a job somewhere else. And that's true, right? You can have a job in 2 hours after walking out the door in the middle of a show. But guess what? That bridge that you burned, it's not going to come back to bite you this year or next year, or maybe even the year after that, but it will eventually come back, because every great relationship that I've had has come back to me over the course of the last 15 years, almost every single one of them, right? In one way or the other. And so I'm really thankful for sort of being able to, even when shit was just going wrong and things were bad and people weren't good fits, and there's been times where I've had to fire people, but like, or had a problem with a director. And I think anytime that there's hard stuff happening, if we can approach it collaboratively and just sort of like, be like, hey, this isn't a good fit, or let me just be honest with you. If we can leave our relationships, even the bad situations, with a good taste in our mouth, that pays dividends down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's really great advice. And yeah, I mean, just to jump ahead a little bit, because I'd love to talk about especially Atomic and all the great things you guys are doing. So just kind of fast forwarding a little bit with your career and what you've done, like how long was it before you jumped over to the Orphanage from where you're at?
Yeah, so I was at the Star Wars art department for a couple years, and then took a brief break in between Star Wars Episode 1 and 2 to do some pre-vis on a movie called Titan AE. And after that, the Orphanage was just getting started. The three founders of that company had just opened their doors and were looking for their first 2 employees. So Ryan and I said, well, that seems fun. Let's go be entrepreneurial. And so that was like 1999. And we ended up being there I was there for seven years. And it was sort of one of the most profound sort of learning experiences in both artistry and leadership that I've had in my career.
Yeah, I think the place was amazing. I was always jealous because I always wanted to pop over there just because I love the work you guys are doing. I was actually talking with John Bell the other day, who's worked with Mike Spohr, who, again, like just a small knit group of people. And yeah, I mean, like the stuff that you guys were doing, it was definitely usually there's like smaller shots than what you would see from bigger studios, but the shots that were coming out were amazing. Like the stuff that you guys were doing, whether it was Hellboy or Day After Tomorrow or anything, Sin City would be a good one.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys are doing amazing stuff. So, I mean, what was it like seeing that company grow from the very early days to, where it was at its peak?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of the best kind of chaos, right? Where I think the company was started by artists, so it had a very artist-centric bent to it. And there was the business. It is hard, and it was really hard back then. And we as a company back at the Orphanage didn't really have a culture of investing in technology and development. I mean, we did some, but we were also like in a historic building, so it was hard to even get enough power and cooling to like power a render farm. So the team there, I think one of the things you see on the screen is that the team was really under-resourced, right? So we couldn't do work at the massive scale of an ILM, even though we wanted to. But to make up for being under-resourced, people poured their souls into the work and really bonded. It was sort of like going to war in a way. On Hellboy, I worked 134-hour work week, followed by 128-hour work week as a CG soup, and got paid no overtime, right? And it was but I loved it. I slept under my desk because I loved it. And I think that showed on the screen, right? The hearts that the artist put into the work. It just ended up being too hard, right? And I think the combination of that and outside industry factors of like just the perfect storm of not getting the right jobs at the right time ultimately spelled out the demise of that company about a year after I left.
Well, yeah. And do you think that I guess like having that experience of like watching the company grow and a lot of the good and bad lessons that came with that, do you think you were able to leverage some of that in preparation for when you guys launched your studio, like knowing, what to expect and the right decisions to make in those periods? I mean, I'd love to talk about IMD for a second, but, one of the things I've always talked about with you guys was the fact that leveraging the cloud and like leveraging so many of the typical mistakes I see a lot of studios make, you've managed to avoid. And one of the big ones is growth, growth too quickly. And you guys have always been able to manage to do that in a smart way where you grow without, let's say, like taking on too many machines and ending up having a diesel generator blowing poisonous fumes into the office because no one anticipated like, oh yeah, we need electricity to fill these seats, and get everything running. I mean, for you, was that pretty beneficial having that experience before you guys did it for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I think that this is sort of like the thing that I think both Ryan and I have strived to do in every job that we've been at, is to look at the good lessons, right, of like what do we need, but also look at the bad lessons and give each one of those the same weight. Where it's like, okay, that didn't work. Let's just not blow it off and say we're going to do the opposite. Let's figure out why it didn't work, and maybe there's a slight tweak on it, right? And so it's not a big swing. So it's really just being super sort of introspective and analytical about everything that happens. And like growing too fast at the Orphanage, that was a big deal when we took on Day After Tomorrow at the same time as Hellboy. It would like double the size of the company overnight, and it was that was really bad. And there were a lot of things that we did poorly at the company that resulted in it being even worse. So, but then there were some great things that came out of it, right? So I think that seeing the company grow like that, it was not only good from a lessons perspective, but it also gave Ryan and I a lot of like major opportunities. Like I was visual effects supervising on Harry Potter when I was 25 years old, right? It's like, where else does that happen? The only reason that happened is because they were fucked and had nobody else to do the work. And they were like, well, Kevin's the closest guy we got, so might as well throw him on it, right?
Sink or swim.
Yeah, sink or swim. Yeah, and I think that fortunately for me, I was in a place where I was either too naive or maybe had some skill around managing people and sort of visuals that I was able to kind of take that and succeed and parlay that into more and more successes. That kind of led me into having the opportunity at ImageMovers Digital to be one of the visual effects supervisors there.
No, that's great. And let's talk about that for a minute. Because is that when you guys obviously had a very long-standing relationship with Robert Zemeckis. So was that where that was initially formed, or? Yeah.
So Doug Chang was he'd been Zemeckis's art, basically digital art department up until that point. And Zemeckis loved working with him so much that he said, hey, I want to, Disney's giving me the opportunity to start my own studio, and we're joining forces. Do you want to be the genesis of that? And so Doug said, yeah. And so he pulled together the team of the best people that he'd worked with in the past. And I just happened to be one of the first kind of non-concept art employees that started there. And we, over the course of, the 4 years that we were there, built that studio into about 700 people across 2 sites to do, Zemeckis' motion capture movies. So we did A Christmas Carol, and then he had a guest director in called Simon Wells, who did a movie called Mars Needs Moms. And about, it was like 6 months before Mars Needs Moms was due to be complete, Disney said, actually, this is going to be your last movie. So finish it out. Good luck with that. And, have a nice life. So I'm really thankful to Disney for giving us a chance to wind that project down and actually finish it. And we finished it ahead of schedule and ahead of budget. And it was actually one of the most fun projects I've ever worked on because everybody was like, all right, well, after this movie's done, we're all moving on. So we might as well have fun while we're doing it. And so ImageMovers was an amazing experience. And there I learned the opposite lessons. I saw the polar opposite of what I saw at the Orphanage, right? Where we had resources to build a 14,000 square foot data center with petabytes of storage and tens of thousands of processors or render farm. We could hire anyone from anywhere in the world, had the fanciest desks and chairs. And there were still a lot of problems, right? There were just very different problems from what the Orphanage experienced. And it was great to have all these resources, but at the same time, it was like really sad to see them sit there and go unused for 90% of the time, right? So I think that's where sort of leading into the idea to start Atomic Fiction, cloud computing played like a big role in that because we'd seen starvation of resources and how crappy that was. I didn't want to sleep under my desk anymore. But we'd also seen the abundance of resources and how depressing it was seeing that money just sitting there burning and ultimately leading to like that studio being closed down. And we thought, let's try to find a way to have the best of both worlds.
So for you, like, when did that idea come to you and Ryan? Like when you decided, okay, let's go and do our own thing? Because I mean, that's ballsy to do. I've been in that situation in a much smaller scale. But again, it's something that like for you to kind of say, okay, like it's time for us to go and make our own studio, having experienced, let's say, 2 big studios closing in the past, like knowing the risks and everything else involved, like what made you guys decide to do it, and how did you know confidently that you, as much as you could, that you were going to succeed in doing it?
Well, I think we were a little naive at the business ownership side of things. I mean, we've been close enough to the sort of business ownership and management side between the Orphanage and at a very large corporate scale at ImageMovers Digital that we kind of knew the basics of business ownership, but neither of us have MBAs. Neither one of us has really run a business before. I mean, we had a consulting company that we formed in high school. That was the closest we got. And so it was, I think we knew enough to be dangerous, but not enough to scare us off. And I'm pretty grateful for that naivety now, because if I known how hard it was, I probably wouldn't have done it. I
think every life lesson is pretty much exactly word for word what you said.
Yeah.
If I had known at the time how much work it would be, I probably wouldn't have done it. But looking back, I'm glad that I did do it.
That's exactly right. And I think that just sort of seeing that come to fruition and sort of being true, from, doing this video that ended up getting us a job with George Lucas, that was, again, like my mom has pictures of like our living room is just a mess at home. And, Ryan and I are like passed out on couches trying to render angle while I got a school project over here. And like, oh my God, did we really do that? Like work like 80 hours a week while going to high school, while holding down a job at Microsoft? It was just like, it was impossible. Yet our ignorance helped us to persevere through that and actually make something out of it. So I think that, Atomic Fiction has been a bit of a similar situation, just the grown-up version of it, right? And at the time, it was like Digital Domain was either bankrupt or going bankrupt, maybe again. Rhythm and Hues, Cafe FX, the Orphanage a couple years before. So there's a lot of bad news in the industry. And at the same time, we were looking and going like, there's so much work out here. There's so much visual effects work being done. How is it possible that everybody's having such a hard time and shutting their doors? There's got to be a better way. And so I think that, that was a beacon of hope for us, in that like we just got to figure out how to skin it right, and then we'll be good. And that turned out to be true.
Love it. And you're right. Like I remember around like 2011. Yeah, it was even in LA, everything was drying up a lot, and it's kind of one of those moments of like, all right, like visual effects is not exactly the industry that's as lucrative as it has been in some different periods. But for you guys, like, how did it happen? I mean, I know initially you wanted to be more of a character based, like doing digital doubles and things like that. Like, how did things get off the ground in the beginning?
Yeah. So there were, you know, I mean, we'd come from ImageMovers Digital and had, you know, our first employees like had quite a pedigree of doing animation. So that's sort of naturally where we started. Ryan and I also personally had backgrounds in digital environments and compositing and lighting and stuff like that. So we had a pretty well-rounded team. And we had a bunch of other ideas. Like one of the ideas was like, hey, we're going to use cloud computing instead of building a render farm. And that idea panned out in a bunch of ways. But then we had other ideas that were like, hey, we want to enable remote, build an infrastructure for remote workers, so anybody can work from anywhere. And that idea did not pan out for people reasons as well as for technical reasons, right? And so, you know, it's sort of the same with the digital double thing. It was like, well, in order for this to work at scale, like we need to build out a lot more and a lot more automation. We just weren't big enough at that point. And along comes Looper and Flight, two movies which didn't have any digital doubles in them, but really like focused on the stuff that we could do a really good job at the scale that we were. And those two movies helped to grow us to about 40 people. And then we, you know, kept parlaying those into more growth. And then The Walk with Zemeckis came along, and we started the Montreal studio based off of that with footprint for around 100 artists. And that was like a lot of environment work, but then we started to be able to kind of pepper in the face replacement stuff in there, because this wire walker, Philippe Petit, who walked between the Twin Towers in 1974 on a high wire, he, you know, there was a stunt performer who was amazing, but didn't look anything like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, right? So we started to take some of these skills that we had earlier on, and we were like, you know what, we're not going to force those. Let's just dodge and weave with the work, and let's grow and kind of grow responsibly, but still let's not lose sight of the end goal, right? So now, today, we've got 200 people in Montreal. We've got the team here in the Bay Area that is now completely focused on character work and animation at the highest end. And we've been able to sort of parlay all this success that we've had in other areas, just sort of taking the work as it's sort of, you know, come, and being picky and choosy when we've had the opportunity to, but really just sort of keeping the success of the business, not the principle of what we were trying to achieve, at the forefront at all times. And now we're able to kind of like come back to really where we started and achieve the goal that we set out for. So it's a little bit of like flexibility, I think, in starting a business like this, not getting too precious about any idea, but staying true to your values, I think, is something that anybody can kind of relate to and benefit from. It's just really hard to do when there's sort of dollar signs.
Yeah.
Well,
no, it's cool. And yeah, I mean, I know initially Jack and Jill and Transformers were kind of the smaller pieces that kind of get that momentum going. And I still remember Transformers being one of those things that even that early into it, and I've actually mentioned, oddly enough, Atomic a lot on the podcast, just basically praising how, like, honestly, like, I hate kissing your ass, but no, like, for me,
kiss my ass.
No, for me, like, it's definitely always been my favorite place to work, and that's fuck. Now I'm really doing it. No, it has been mainly to do with you, just because I felt like even on the smaller projects where like Transformers was a very fast turnaround, but the leadership about it, like, you were able to bring in a really great team of people who by themselves were able to work really efficiently. But then on top of that, even in the small amount of time we had to do everything, we were able to turn out so much more because we were able to make the right decisions at the right time. And it's kind of, for me, the couple of projects that I have experienced that with you guys, it's always been the same thing where making the right decisions, at the right time. And it's always been the perfect decision, and that could have completely derailed everything if it wasn't. And yeah, it's just always been like a very positive experience in that way. And
that's awesome. Yeah. And I think you're spot on with like that. So much of it's like, so much of things going right on a movie have to do with timing, right? It's like when's the right time to like do the pie in the sky shit where you're just like coming up with ideas and whatever. And I've worked with visual effects supervisors all the time they're doing that until the shot is done, and it's insane.
Yeah.
You need a really just massive budget movie to do that. But I think it's possible to get so much more out of a process and have it feel so much more controlled if the pie in the sky then goes into a refinement, then goes into the detail, and then you're just done, right? And that is a thing that I think is, part of what you felt in sort of the enjoyment is that, being able to achieve something and feel like everybody's working towards a goal that makes sense is, to me, it gives me great satisfaction, right? And so if we can create that for the teams at the company, and we don't always succeed at doing that, by the way, but we try, then that's sort of like the definition of success for me, is when people are happy and feeling fulfilled in their creativity.
That's awesome, man. And with Flight, obviously that was a big project that I find it really interesting too, because with the capabilities of the cloud, it allowed you guys to scale up very quickly. So initially it was just going to be a couple of like 6 shots, something like that, wasn't it? It was a lot smaller, and then it overnight like blew up. And do you want to talk about that really briefly?
Yeah, that was sort of the aha moment where it's like, oh, cloud isn't just about saving money for a company like us. Like, because at that time cloud was a lot more expensive than it is today. So if you did the math, it was sort of like, oh man, if I have a even 100 node render farm or whatever, it's like 10 times more expensive to do it in the cloud. So everybody was like, you're crazy. But what we were taking into account is like, well, it's not 100 machines all the time. It's only 100 when we need it, right? So we're spiking up and down like, really quick. And it was like a month before the project finished, and Zemeckis called me up and he said, hey, I just had a screening with the studio and they want to add a bunch of shots, and here's what we're thinking. And it was like 100 more shots or something like that. I mean, it grew by like almost double in complexity overnight. And we were able to, even if we had the option of like carting in machines and a diesel generator, it wouldn't have been able to get done in time, right? We wouldn't have been able to get it set up. But using cloud, we were able to spin up resources. And I was literally there the last day that they were mixing sound at Skywalker Ranch. And Zemeckis walks into the mixing room and he looks at a shot. I'm about to show him the final shot in the movie, which is this really kind of long comp shot. And he was like, I want to make this one last change. And I was able to like submit this render from my laptop sitting in the middle of Marin County, California, basically on a farm, spin up a few hundred nodes in the cloud, get it back and show it to him an hour later, get it approved and done. And that's the shot that's in the movie, right? So there were a bunch of lessons throughout that show that were just sort of like, man, this is really powerful from a workflow perspective, not just from a financial one.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that so much. And that was actually another good point, is that like man hours too, that's one thing that downtime, waiting for licenses to get set up and waiting for more machines to come in, all the amount of time wasted that then escalates once it ripples through into staffing and paying for everyone while they're waiting around. Like this, I think you brought up a really good point. I think at the 11th hour of Transformers, which was, if you are waiting at your desk for a render to go by, send it to the farm. If it costs $50 to get a render out and get it back, it's a lot cheaper than having you sit around, twiddling your thumbs waiting for something. You know what I mean? And that's just it. Like when you look at a studio, like anytime I've ever been supervising a job and the network goes down and everyone like goes out for an hour, I'm just thinking of how much that crash has cost, and when you're thinking about licensing and new hardware and getting that all in and getting all set up, the amount of time that is wasted, it does kind of creep up on you very quickly. Whereas with the cloud, you can just click literally flick a switch and you've got access to unlimited power as much as you want to enable.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is it's really hard. It's a lot harder than people think to do that, right? So when we've sort of been working for years and years on perfecting like how to really get effectively unlimited resources cloud side to work at performance levels that are good enough, right? Every year things are changing cloud side, right? So. But the concept is absolutely there, and you as an exceptional artist yourself know that it's like it's not just about the money that gets wasted as people sort of sit there and aren't able to be productive or, God forbid, miss a deadline. It's also that whole thing of like, if you had an idea and you changed a couple of parameters and then you send it off, the longer it takes for you to see the result of that, the less fresh that idea was in your head, and the chances of your next iteration actually being a positive step forward become smaller, right? Mm-hmm. So just in terms of the creative process in general, this sort of increased turnaround time is so valuable, and so that's why we were kind of disappointed with. I mean, the cloud showed a lot of promise, but we were sort of disappointed in all the sort of like ways to get there. So in 2015, we decided to write our own solution, kind of as a platform, just for ourselves. We called it Conductor. And about a year into using it on Game of Thrones and Deadpool, and we were starting to use it on we were using it on The Walk as well. It was working so well that we said, well, shoot, if this had existed off the shelf, we would have bought it. And the light bulb went off, and we actually ended up deciding to spin it out as a standalone company. So we did that. Now, anybody out there who wants to render in the cloud can use Conductor in the same way that Atomic Fiction does, because Atomic Fiction is actually now a customer of Conductor's.
Yeah, and I thank you for making the perfect segue to Conductor for me, because it's exactly where I was going. I think that's also the best way to test whether or not something's going to be a success, is if you're using it and you think like, why isn't everyone else, being able to take advantage of this? So, I mean, for you guys, like, was that an easy, conscious decision to decide to create a separate sister company, or how have you made it relate to Atomic, mm-hmm. but to go into doing software? Because obviously it might be easy to develop something internally, but to then go and do that in the outside world, like it's obviously a lot of work. So how straightforward was that? Did it kind of happen overnight, or was it kind of something that had been creeping up over time?
Yeah, I mean, it was get ready for it. If I'd known how hard it was going to be, I probably wouldn't have done it.
I'm seeing a recurring theme here.
Yeah, exactly. It is, I thought it was going to take like 6 months to productize Conductor to the point where other people could use it. It turns out that it took a round of venture capital funding that was half a VC and half Autodesk, and about 2 years worth of time to bring it to the level where it is today, where it's like truly product worthy. And there's customers, like we have a architecture customer on the platform just today. I'm looking at the dashboard. You just like rendered a 1,300 frame long animation and got it back in 2 hours. That would have taken them 4 weeks on a single machine to get back, right? So, and then we also have larger studios on it that are using it at real production scale on feature films. So it's gotten to the point now where it's like, okay, I'm starting to see like it really like helping people live the dream that we wanted to live at Atomic Fiction early on. But it was a hard road, and it took Atomic Fiction dog fooding it to help get it there. But Atomic Fiction doesn't even get a discount on it, right? Because we want to make sure that it's like, hey, the economics of this really need to be genuinely like beneficial. We want to give value to people. We don't just want to take people's money. We want to be able to help people scale effectively, infinitely, save money, and have a great experience doing it. And so I think that's what we're delivering at Conductor now.
That's so cool. And for everyone who's not aware of Conductor, do you want to give a bit of a lowdown of what it is, but also some of the advantages it has in itself?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's it's effectively a place where you can go and sign up and create an account and start rendering in the cloud, right? It basically attaches to, Maya and Houdini and Katana and Nuke and a variety of other tools and renders in, RenderMan or V-Ray or Arnold. It does that in a way where we, Conductor handles, basically there's this little plugin that sits in your Maya scene, and you say render in Conductor and set a few parameters, and it will handle all the uploads into the cloud. It will, if you've already done a render, it says, oh, I know that there's already a bunch of stuff in the cloud. I don't need to re-upload it, right? So it does data deduplication on the upload process. Once all your dependencies are in the cloud, it spins up. If you have a 200 frame long shot, it'll spin up 200 nodes. It'll render it as fast as it can get done and automatically download the result back to your local machine. So there's no management of uploads, downloads. There's no management of starting and stopping cloud resources. We have a proprietary file system that basically makes file I/O super performant, even with thousands of nodes running. So it really just takes all the complexity of the cloud and sort of manages that as a service. And a freelancer can use it really easily. Or a studio, we've built it with APIs that will allow studios to tie into it with their custom pipeline, right? And get their custom plugins and scripts. And even if they have custom applications that they want to run in the cloud, it supports that too. So it's really just sort of like a platform that gives visual effects and animation studios access to the cloud without having to spend the 1.5 to 2 years to build the sort of the functionality to get in. And because we operate at large scale, the pricing actually ends up in the aggregate being better than what people can get from the cloud provider directly, right? So it's a pretty cool thing to see coming together. And we have relationships with all these software vendors, right? So if you need 2,000 licenses of Arnold for 38 minutes, we have a per minute licensing agreement with Autodesk that allows us to give that to you without you having to pick up the phone and beg for weekly licenses. So it's really kind of living the dream of like really per second usage based, like it's real consumption model for rendering as a service.
Yeah, I love it. And the fact that it's production proven, like having it, the origins of it come from production rather than, let's say, be more of a architectural solution that then got kind of reshaped into, or could be supporting feature film. I think that also kind of helps it, can hit the ground.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we'd actually been fighting for a while is sort of like there have been a ton of rendering services out there. Some of them truly cloud-based, some of them are not. And they're all kind of shitty. And so when we came to the stage, everybody assumed that we were just another shitty rendering service, right? And it's like, no, we're like an actual legit, like this is like for like A-list movies. And, it's like Blade Runner just won an Oscar, right? And parts of Blade Runner were rendered in Conductor, right? So it's like, okay, Oscar-winning visual effects can be done in the cloud through Conductor. You can be up and running in 2 hours instead of 2 years. Let's do this together. And so we've been seeing a lot of excitement around it recently that we've sort of been, the proof in the pudding has really started to show.
That's cool. And I guess the last question I have about Conductor would be just the obvious resistance anyone's going to have, if anyone is going to say anything, it's going to be, well, the MPAA or Marvel, for instance, are always going to have their restraints about not wanting their stuff up there. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, do you have solutions to that or more insight? Because I'm sure you do.
Yeah. It's interesting because a couple of years ago, up until a couple of years ago, there was sort of just the security thing it was so scary for everyone. And so we actually put a lot of effort into that right off the bat. So much so that we actually, we wanted to, Atomic Fiction wanted to use Conductor on Pirates of the Caribbean. And Disney came back to us and said, no way in hell are you putting our stuff in the cloud, right? And we're like, no, Conductor's secure. And they're like, we don't believe you. And then we said, okay, how can we make you believe us? And in a way that will make Conductor usable for anybody who wants to work on a Disney project down the line. So they told us to, contact their third-party independent security auditors called ISE. And so we did, and we called them and we entered into an agreement with them where they do routine source code reviews. They do intrusion testing and architecture consulting, so that by the time that we really started heavily rendering on Pirates of the Caribbean, it was blessed for use on the show by Disney and by ISE. So we have a great relationship with those people, and we know that a single security breach of our platform would basically spell the end of it. So we take security on Conductor as seriously as we take the life of the business, right? I mean, it's really insanely important. And the good thing is now, a couple years later, that the NPA and Disney Marvel and Fox and a whole bunch of the other studios that are out there that really care a lot about security have started to kind of come out with and publish standards about security. So whereas before it was sort of this unbounded question of like security, right? People would just say because security, and it was like, well, there's no way to validate whether it's secure or not. And now with these guidelines, there's sort of a box, and as long as you fit within the box, you're deemed secure, right? So it's a lot more clear what secure means now. So it's not this like ambiguous scare tactic, but it's a real sort of like just technical challenge, right? And you hit it.
Cool. I love it. And I got a couple more questions and we'll wrap it up, but I'd be kicking myself if I didn't kind of dive a little bit into some of the amazing projects you guys do. I guess my question would be like, what do you think to date is the most challenging project that you guys have done at Atomic?
Oh man. Every project's challenging for different reasons. Like we did a ton of work towards the later episodes on Stranger Things this last season, and that was really hard just because it's episodic, right? It's sort of more of TV style schedules where it's this rolling episode deliveries and no time at all, and with a month left to go, it's like, oh, we got to do a bunch of the the demodogs in the later episodes and things like that, right? Where the schedule was the hardest thing. And then, like Pac Rim 2, Pac Rim Uprising, we just did some shots where one of these giant kaiju creatures is crashing through the ocean and destroying Santa Monica Pier. And those simulations had like 6 or 8 billion particles in the flip solve simulations, right? And just like massive, massive sims. And so smaller number of shots, but really challenging. And then the show that I'm on right now, working with Robert Zemeckis, it's a movie called Welcome to Marwen, and it's based on sort of this story of it's a true life story where a guy who's a victim of a hate crime is basically kind of getting over. Sort of giving himself therapy by building a miniature sort of doll village in his backyard that's based on like a Belgian World War II village. And it is this incredible story where you spend 60% of the movie inside of, his sort of just depressing life where he's trying to overcome this hate crime that's been done with it and then done to him. And then 40% of the movie, you're in his imagination watching, dolls run around, killing Nazis, right? And it's insane, but it's so. I mean, there's a lot of shots. There's like 600-700 shots in it, and the workflow of it to get this sort of miniaturized but really honest look to it, this kind of gritty look to it, and get the actors' performances onto these dolls. It's just. I mean, you'll see when the trailer comes out, whenever it comes out, all of this will make sense. But it is just bananas and unlike anything that's actually ever been done before. And I know that's always what directors ask for, but this actually unlike anything that's ever been done before. So those are that's the kind of challenge I really like grabbing onto. The sort of the technical and the schedule ones are, those are fun too. But the sort of like, how do we tell a story that hasn't been told before and show people they haven't seen something they haven't seen before? That's the stuff I really get a kick out of.
That's so cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I could ask you a million questions, but I'm curious, like, obviously you guys run Montreal and you've also got the Northern California office. So do you guys share projects back and forth, or are you kind of self-contained within each office?
We've experimented with a bunch of different models, some of which work better than others.
I'm always fascinated by this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it is a real challenge, and because you share work, and then you're dealing with moving data back and forth, and you develop a methodology in one location that doesn't make it to the other, and it's hard work. And what we've settled into is that the Bay Area office, the Bay Area is one of those places where it's like, high-end creature animation was born here with like Jurassic Park, right? And
ILM, Tippett, and
Tippett, Pixar. And so we were just sort of looking at that and going like, well, all this, everybody wants to work where there's a rebate, but and Montreal has a great rebate, but what is something that you just can't get there, right? Or is really, really hard to find. And the thing that even the studios who really look at this stuff from a 30,000 foot view know is that really exceptional world-class character animation talent is California is the place, right?
Yeah.
And so we've really focused the office here around that. We do sort of share projects, but it's really like the front end sort of character animation brain trust is in California. And then we have a really talented team of animators as well in Montreal that they all kind of share mind share. But the front end is, sort of born in California. And then a lot of the execution side, all the execution side happens in Montreal. So we kind of find that the sort of the split in the workflow to be a really successful model versus some shots done here, some shots done there. That's really logistically hard to handle. So I think we've kind of honed into a sweet spot where we're letting this smaller team in the Bay Area have like a halo effect on the company as a whole in terms of just upping our character animation abilities, company-wide.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's awesome to kind of play on the strengths of each location. And that's really smart to do. I mean, if you had a New York office, then if you had a lot of interface work and motion graphics, then obviously that's where that would land. And yeah, I think that's awesome.
Indeed.
Yeah, like one or two questions I had was just about more to do with staffing, just because obviously you've got a lot of experience in that. And I feel like, do you have any advice for people who were applying everywhere and wanting to try and figure out a way to stand out, to get noticed, or to land their dream job? Yeah,
I mean, I think probably some of my answers would be sort of like standard, like, demo reel best practices, right? Where it's like, hey, only put your best shots on your reel. I'm so surprised every day that I review reels where it's just like, there are still people with 5-minute long reels that have 1 minute of good stuff on it, and the rest of it is kind of It's like, have somebody look at your reel and just tell you like, hey, I want to cut out all but the best shit. And that's the stuff you should keep on there. Nobody has, like, people that are reviewing these reels, they don't have time to sit and look through all these things. You've got
a big spreadsheet of reels, and you've got to go through them. So you're literally just looking for an excuse to go to the next one.
Yep. And honestly, especially if you're sort of like more junior, I would say that the big thing is like, take some initiative. And if the company is interviewing for a position of X, Y, or Z, either cut a reel that sort of like plays to that, or I think that even create a little bit of content that speaks to that. I mean, I remember once I interviewed a gal who wanted to do texture work, and she had actually crafted, it was a really simple thing, but it was just like an image that was sort of dedicated to what we were hiring for. I'm like, how can I not hire you? Like, you just took the effort on your own time to like show me what you can do in a way that makes it, easy for me to make this decision. You show me that you care. And the last thing I would say is I would suggest that people do some research on the company before interviewing. There is nothing more impressive than sitting down in an interview, and instead of having to tell the candidate all about the company, they already know most of what's publicly available, and they're asking really smart questions that actually matter about how they're going to enjoy themselves at the company, right? So find out about the culture, find out about what tools they use, find out about the kinds of work that they've done, and maybe even a little bit about what they want to do. Like somebody who wants to apply to atomic fiction now after listening.
Send you some, track time for your car.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, it is like, hey, that we're like really ramping up on the character side of things. So, ask some questions about that, like where we want to take our character work, right? And that'll impress people. Just sort of like the foundational knowledge that 15 minutes of research can give you can help make interviews. Not only can that impress people in the interviews, but it can also make the interview a lot more effective, where you can get what you need out of the interview as well. Because the interviews are all about, not only are you a fit for what the company needs, but is the company a fit for something that's going to make you happy, right? Mm-hmm. As a candidate. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't use interviews enough for, right? Because if we hire you and you're not happy, that's kind of that's a failure all around, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
That's great. Mike Janoff can probably elaborate more on this, but the only time I've ever seen anyone do a little bit too much research was he interviewed at what we're doing Priest, and he literally knew every single person who was in the room and like way too much about them. And when it got to Janoff specifically, he had worked on that CGI penis for what was the Tarantino and
the Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse? It would actually be Grindhouse.
Grindhouse, yeah, good old Grindhouse. So he specifically went into detail about how much of a fan he was of Janoff's work on that, and on. And I had no idea until they all came back and they had like this weirdest look on their face. And apparently, what happened was that he then followed up with sending thank you letters, which, when I think about it, like, he's really crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's in terms of what to do. Just he managed to do it in a really creepy way, but he sent additional follow-ups for everyone in there saying thank you, but they were very long, very in-depth, very intimate. And so it's one of those situations where he would have gotten the job if he hadn't done all those things. But you are right. Like, I think that the polar opposite of putting in the effort is that I've had people email me applying for work, and they've literally CC'd all these other studios on the same email.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all this kind of just really bad habits that I'm surprised that, like, it really shows the reflection of what kind of effort you're going to put in at the company.
Yeah.
That's
and as funny as that shit is, I think what it does is it's a sign that there's a real opportunity, just like when we started Atomic Fiction, right? Where we were like, hey, there's all this work out there and people are having a hard time. There must be a better way. Like, there are all these applicants out there applying for all this stuff. But you hear stories like this, and, the smart ones in the audience will sit there and go like, wow, there must be a better way to apply than that, right? It's like the fact that there's so much shit out there is a great sort of platform for you to rise to the top. Right. So I think just a little bit of effort and like finding that sweet spot of like, properly researching, having your act together, being sort of like, succinct, making the interviewer's job easy and pleasurable, and also getting the information that you need out of that's all possible in like a 45-minute window. And if you're the one that can do that, you will be 1 in 100, literally. So go for it.
That's great. And I think we already covered it, but my final question would just be that do you have any experience, like any red flags that commonly happen when people apply for work? I think that I've been kind of gravitating towards this question a lot lately, just because I find that it's kind of the same way that getting into the mindset of the person who's hiring. Like, I don't think that most people are aware of how busy or how cutthroat the supervisor or HR or the manager is that's typically hiring everyone. And like, all it takes is one bad shot and you're on to the next reel. Or you don't even look at the reel because they have like a 20-second title sequence saying their name and compositor or whatever it might be that you never even watched the damn thing. And I think that most people just forget that altogether. For you, like, are there any common red flags that you just see people do over and over that are literally costing them the job, whether it's applying or interviews or whatever?
Well, I mean, certainly there are times where we get like cover letters and stuff like that that are kind of like super cocky, right? It's just like, you would be lucky to have so I think that just sort of like taking a balanced approach of like, it's great to sing your praises, but also don't make any assumptions about what the hiring company wants or needs or values, right? I think it's a dialogue, right? So I think that not approaching an application from a very one-sided approach in either direction is a common mistake that I see that is sort of red flags. And honestly, the other thing is, it's like we do a lot of reference checks on people, right? And so if you've been like not a great employee at another company, if you've left in the middle of a project and left people high and dry for a $5
If you threw a digitape at someone's head and said "fuck you all" and walked out, then people might hear about it.
Exactly. And unfortunately, it's all too often that I think that for better or worse, because this is a creative industry, right? So it's like we all put a lot of creative and artistic pride in what we do. It's just the most common mistake I see people doing at jobs, just in general, is putting their own creative pride against ahead of the show, right, or ahead of the company. And that manifests itself in all kinds of ways, but usually it's in disagreements with supervisors or getting a reputation for being hard to work with or something like that. And I think that really is like the thing at the end of the day is that helps make people successful and get great reputations, is when it's like, hey, the show is my first priority. I'm going to interject. I'm going to give all my artistic like energy to this. But at the end of the day, if the show needs something else, that's what we need to do, because it's the director's vision, and it's like we got a business to run here as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that straying too far from that and putting one's own artistic pride ahead of the project or ahead of the directors is something that is, out of all the red flags that we get in background checks, most of it comes down to that, right? So I would just encourage everybody to be really introspective and just sort of say, hey, is this disagreement that I got in with my supervisor or a bar that I was like trying to hit and I couldn't, is that because I was maybe too proud, right? Is that because I was, losing sight of the job, which is to really support the vision of the director? And I think that for me, early on in my career, 9 times out of 10, it was that, right? So I've been there.
That's awesome, man. This has been really great. So where would people go to find out more about you and Atomic?
Yeah, so you can go to atomicfiction.com. I am on Instagram as FX Nerd. And
You never replied to any of my comments, by the way. I'm really butthurt.
I never reply to anybody's comments. I'm just like, I love posting pictures. And you can find out more about Conductor at conductortech.com.
That's awesome, man. Again, thanks, man. This has been really great.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and we'll have to connect for a beer at some point soon.
All right, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Again, thanks to Kevin for taking the time out to chat. And if you want to check out the show notes, go to alanmckay.com/148, and you'll be able to check out all of the information that we discussed here, as well as links to everything as well. Finally, I'll be back next week with a solo episode, which I've been looking forward to doing. And this is something that has been coming up a lot lately. I've gotten at least, I don't know how many emails in the past couple of weeks, specifically asking, Alan, should I focus my career on being a generalist, or should I specialize? Should I be a specialist? So this is something I thought I would do an episode around answering this question, and really kind of getting more beyond the surface layer answer, and really kind of getting into the mindset that you should have with your whole career, and how you see yourself, and also how you communicate your services to others. So that episode is coming up next. All right. So until then, rock on.